The 2024 Women's NCAAs are done and over with, and now that the dust is cleared, we need to take a thorough look at the meet that Gretchen Walsh just had, because it might be one of the best in history. Gretchen Walsh got things started leading off the 200 medley relay on day 1, where she blasted a new fastest ever time in the 50 back with a 22:10. The next fastest 50 back time in the field was Ohio State's Nyia Funderburk in a 23:4, almost a second and a half behind Walsh. This 50 back time also stands clear of any other swimmer in history. The second fastest swimmer in the 50 backstroke is Maggie McNeil in a 22:52. On the next day, Gretchen Walsh broke her own NCAA record in the 50 freestyle in prelims. In finals, Walsh continued her assault on this record, touching the wall in a 20.37. She now owns the 5 fastest swims in the history of the event, and is now 42 hundredths ahead of the second fastest ever, Maggie McNeil. Later in the session, Walsh was a part of Virginia's NCAA title-winning 200 free relay, where she split a 20.23, which is the third fastest swim ever, behind 2 of her own swims this year, and faster than anyone else has ever gone. On day 3, Gretchen Walsh nearly broke her own NCAA record in prelims again, this time in the 100 fly, where she was just 1/100 slower than the record she set at the ACC championships. But in finals, Walsh dropped the hammer, throwing down a 47.42 to completely blow the lid off of her own record, becoming the first woman to break 48 seconds and blitzing a stacked field by over 2 seconds. Walsh's front-end speed being showcased was ridiculous. She was out in a monstrous 21.75. That is faster than anyone has ever been in a 50 fly in a 200 medley relay with a flying start. Later on in the day, Walsh led off the 400 medley relay as the backstroker. Here she tied herself for the second fastest 100 back time in history, only being slower than her own NCAA record swim from ACCs. On the final day of the meet, Gretchen Walsh was up in the 100 free. She had broken the NCAA record at the ACC championships, and everyone in the world of swimming had their eyes towards a specific barrier. And Walsh broke through that barrier, ripping a 44.83 to become the first woman ever under 45 seconds. And once again, Walsh's opening speed was something to behold. She flipped at the 50 in a 21.40. For reference, that would have placed 4th in the individual 50 freestyle. And remember that 1, that time is recorded to the feet, and 2, that placement is with Gretchen Walsh herself taking up the number 1 spot. To cap off the meet, Walsh was the third leg on the 400 freestyle relay, where she split a 45.17. While it was slower than her individual swim, that is still the fastest recorded 100 free from a flying start ever. Gretchen Walsh just had a complete monster of a meet. Nearly every single time she dove into the water, she went a time faster than anyone else in history. If she didn't break a record, the only times faster were her own. The only exception is the prelims of the 100 free, where she was only the 6th fastest time ever and was behind Simone Manuel. And that being the exception demonstrates just how insane this meet was for Gretchen. For most swimmers, if you shared a similar stat, you would assume the discussion was about finals only, but for Walsh, it even applies in prelims. With a track record like that, Gretchen Walsh may have just made a strong argument for this being the greatest single NCAA meet performance ever. Let's look at the other contenders for reference. Last year, Walsh's teammate Kate Douglas also went 3 for 3 in individual event wins and records, but Douglas didn't have the added boost of going all-time best relay splits the way Walsh just did. On the men's side, Caleb Dressel was on a very similar level in 2018. He went 3 for 3 in individual event titles and records, went the fastest ever split on the freestyle leg of the 200 medley, actually broke the 50 free record 3 times in one day in prelims leading up to 200 free relay, and then in the individual final. Dressel also went the fastest 100 free with a flying split in the 400 free relay, and went faster than anyone other than himself at the time in the prelims of the 100 free. Dressel did opt to swim breaststroke on the 400 medley relay, where he was a ways off of the all-time top rankings despite being the, at that point, former NCAA record holder in the event. The other man to consider in this comparison is Leon Marchand from last year. He obviously also went 3 for 3 in titles and records, but added the fastest ever 200 free from a flying start by quite a large margin, and the fastest ever 150 breaststroke splits. Like Dressel, Marchand had one relay where he wasn't in the conversation for the fastest split of all time, this time on the 400 freestyle relay. This is obviously a very specific comparison between Gretchen Walsh and these other all-time greats in NCAA swimming, but the fact that Gretchen Walsh managed to have this kind of dominance against not only the other swimmers at the meet, but other swimmers in history speaks to just how good of a meet this was for her. Gretchen Walsh swam 10 different times at NCAAs. She won 3 individual event titles and 4 relay titles. She set individual NCAA records 4 times, and she went the fastest ever relay split 3 times. And the best part, Gretchen Walsh is still a junior, meaning we have the potential for this to happen one more time. What do you think was Walsh's most impressive performance at this meet? And how do you think her short course yard swims will translate to long course this summer? Let me know down below.